And we are back here on the Morning Buzz. And as promised, we have an interview with the man with the plan, all the way from the NHL land, Dan Rosen, who is the senior writer for NHL.com and host of the NHL at the Rink podcast. Welcome to the Morning Buzz, good sir. How are you doing?
I'm good, guys. Thanks for having me on.
The honor is ours. So we're just going to jump right into things. You're obviously a sports journalist. And so, how did you find yourself in the world of sports media?
Oh, it's a long story. Well, at least I tell it like a long story. It's not really a long story. It goes back. I went to the University of Arizona. I grew up in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. It's where I live right now. And I decided I needed to get some warm weather. So I went to the University of Arizona. And as I was a sophomore, I was starting to figure out what I wanted to do and joined the student newspaper to see if I liked it or not. And I ended up covering some club lacrosse and club rugby and just kind of just treated it like it was huge, even though it wasn't on that campus huge, you had to treat it that way. And then I covered the Arizona football team my first semester junior year, and it just like I fell in love with it. Just absolutely loved it. They had their best season ever, 12-1. And I just thought it was so much fun to, the coolest things, like you get to go to the games for free. You get to talk to the players after the game, and you get to do what you love to do, which is write about sports. Like, what's better than that, right? And so I just kind of took off from there. I covered everything I could when at the University of Arizona. We had a 5-day a week, daily college newspaper. So it was huge. And with it being a big school, we were mingling in with the pros. We were mingling in with the professional journalists as they came to town. And, we would go on the road sometimes to like UCLA and USC for a road trip, or up to Washington for a road trip. And it was pretty great. It was something you never knew. I never knew it could happen. Then I, was a sports editor there as well. And then I graduated, and I was working a little bit at the Arizona Daily Star in Tucson, Arizona for a few months, and got a job back home at the Herald News, which which was based out of Passaic County in New Jersey. And then, like, fortunately, what happened was the Herald News and the Bergen Record at the time, now this is back in 2001, merged their high school sports coverage. And I got pushed into go to the Records newsroom, which was in Hackensack, New Jersey. It's no longer there anymore. But that was the big newsroom. That's where I wanted to be. And that's where opportunities kind of came up for me. And I did the best I could covering high school sports, and got some opportunities to do some NHL stuff with the New Jersey Devils. And it kind of just took off from there. In 2003, I thought I was going to be on for just a handful of playoff games with the Devils, and then just go right back to covering high school baseball. And it turns out they went and won the Stanley Cup, and I was on it the whole way. And I met the people that hired me at the NHL on that on that ride with in covering those playoff games, that playoff run. And they hired me 4 years later, but you stayed in touch, and I've been at the NHL ever since 2007.
Yeah, so Dan, you mentioned your start at Arizona State and being college
University
students.
of Arizona.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
sorry,
Wow, you
my
can't
bad.
put
on.
that.
My bad, my bad, my bad.
I'm
No.
You
logging
said
off.
I
That's
just
it.
saw
It's over.
Ah,
I
disrespect.
heard Arizona, and
It's all
I
right.
immediately thought Arizona. You mentioned you started at the University of Arizona. We're all college students here. I'm especially a sports communication major. I'm also trying to be like in the landscape of sports media. How has the landscape of sports media broadened over your years in the industry?
Oh my God. I mean, it's night and day to what it was, So I don't consider myself old, but I'm 44 years old, and I've been doing this now for 20. I mean, if you go back to the time I started in college, 24 years, right? Um, at that time, you got to remember, like, the internet was almost new at that time, right? I mean, it was just this burgeoning thing that we hadn't quite figured out at all. And we knew it was going to be big. We just didn't know how big it was. And it makes me sound old to say that, but that's kind of what it was. Like, it was still in its infancy stages at the time. And everything you did was for the newspaper. Everything you did was for print journalism, in actual ink is my point. And as it got on, I would say, it obviously blossomed. The internet became what it's become, which is massive. And the emphasis on print journalism, actual ink, was still there when I was still in the newspaper business. But I can't remember if it was 2004 or 2005. I was part of the group that started what's called the Varsity Aces blog at the Record, or now NorthJersey.com. And it was, blogs were starting to come up big, right? So you realized at the time you had to be multimedia. Like, if you were young in journalism at the time and you weren't willing to be multimedia, you were not going to make it. No chance. Because look at where we are now. People from my generation who are in their late 30s and early to mid 40s, the ones who are still around are the ones that understand that you have to have the ability to do so many different things in this field. And if you don't, you're just not going to make it. Or if you're not willing, you're out of it, So at the start, it was just writing for the web. And then it was taking all the extra stuff that you had that didn't make it into your newspaper article and putting it on the web for everybody to see, even if it was just free, right? I mean, just laying it out there, giving all the information, analysis, all that. It became doing more radio hits. It became doing then, podcasts and the like. And it kind of just grew and grew and grew. And I mean, for me now, like, I write for NHL.com. I do a podcast. I'm on NHL Network. I do videos that just go on analysis videos that just for the web, the YouTube, and all this different, ways. If I didn't jump into being multimedia when I did, I probably wouldn't be doing this right now, because you wouldn't have the ability to have any staying power.
Absolutely. And earlier you mentioned your a little bit about your transition out of the college world and into the actual job world. Could you tell us what that process was like as soon as you graduated?
Yeah, you know what? It was actually pretty seamless for me, because I was at a school where I had met like, I knew the guy who was covering the Arizona basketball team, because I had been on press row with him before. Yes, I was a college student, but luckily for me, he was the type of guy that, and he's still covering the team. He's the type of guy that, didn't care that I was a college student. I knew the people that were covering the football team. I knew the columnist in Tucson, Arizona for the Arizona Daily Star. So when I went to look for a job that would just kind of help me transition, it was a natural fit to just stay there for a little bit, right? And I was able to go in there and have these people that had known me a little bit, sort of as resources. And that really did help. And that's not something you always get. But I would say the thing for me, the biggest thing that I tried to follow, the advice I got and the advice I give now, is when you're making the transition, don't just, like, every job you can get, you have to treat as the biggest job in the world. That's how I did it. And that's what people told me. And so now, because I'm in hockey for so long, I say this, right? So if I was at a high school cross country meet writing a story for the Arizona Daily Star, I treated that like it was the Stanley Cup final. Now, it wasn't like presented that way. Obviously I knew what I was doing was, small time, but if you don't treat it that way, you're not going to tackle the assignment the right way and do whatever you need to do for that assignment, to make it the best possible thing. And if you're not making it the best possible, you're putting your name on it, right? Like, you're putting your face on it. And if you're not making it the best possible thing you can do, then you're doing a disservice to yourself, really, more than anything else. And that's kind of how I did it. I just, decided that I want this. I want to do it this way. I was fortunate, and it's a reason why I went to a big school, because I knew I wanted to work in athletics. I knew I wanted to work in sports in some capacity. It turned out to be media, but I figured if I was at a big school, I would have contacts as I was trying to graduate to, help me get into the professional world. And then once I was able to do that, it was like, all right, now let's hit the ground running hard here. And that's kind of what, that's what I did. And then, I mean, you need some luck along the way. And my luck came when I got the job at the Herald News. That wasn't luck. I earned that. But it was when they decided a few months later that said, oh, we're going to have the Record and the Herald News merge high school sports desks, and you're going to go work over in the big newsroom at the Record. That was like, bang. Okay, now they can see it. And if they need somebody to do something else, I can jump on that too. And that's really what happened.
Yeah. So Dan, we are all broadcast journalists, really, because we're always on the air. We're always doing radio network work. So you're also a writer. What would be the biggest piece of advice to someone who would want to be a beat writer for sports media?
Well, that part of it is what I just said, which is, treat every story that you do as the biggest story of the day. Like, even if it's not treated that way in whatever, media outlet you work for, whether it's a newspaper or a website or whatever it may be, right? Make it the biggest thing of the day, at least in your mind, because that's the way you're going to write it. And that's the way you're going to, it's going to be presented to in your words. Your name goes at the top of it. Nobody else's name goes at the top of it. Yours does. And then the second thing is just be prepared to work, man. I mean, like, it's an absolute passion. Like, I love what I do. People ask me, like, you don't really work. I have a buddy of mine who kind of puts up air quotes when I say, and I tell him I have to work. He's like, yeah, work, right? Sure. You go to hockey games, right? You cover sports. It is work. There's no question about it. But if you don't love it, then you're just not going to be very good at it, in my opinion. And I absolutely love what I do. I remember I've had a lot of conversations with Mike Emmerich, former, Hall of Fame broadcaster, right? And he would always say to me, Dan, they let us in for free. Do you believe it? Right. And he's 100% right. As long as they keep letting me in for free, I'm going to keep doing the work I want to do, which is, I'm a big time sports fan and I get to go to games for free. And if I ever lose that, what's the point? Like, that's the passion. That's the love. We joke that we work in the toy department sometimes, and we do, but you know what? It's work, and you've got to be willing to work. You've got to be willing to grind. As a beat writer, you have to be willing to cultivate sources, talk to a lot of people. You have to be outgoing. You cannot be an introvert and be a beat writer. It's not going to work. You're going to get beat pretty much, and then it's going to show. So it's got to be treat everything big and make yourself as big as you can be. And don't be afraid to have an ego either. Nothing that's going to be like, and I would say that to you guys in broadcast, like, anyway, like, don't be afraid to have an ego. It's not an ego that's going to like jump out at you and annoy, but an ego that's going to go out into any room and say, yeah, he's confident. He knows what he's doing. She's confident. She knows what she's doing.
100%. I think that's honestly good advice, not even just for like beat writers, but anyone trying to make it in the media industry at all. But going on to my next question is that, so obviously we're in a radio station, we're doing a show that has a lot of preparation that goes into it. And I also have another show, it's like a podcast. And I know the process of preparation like that. You yourself are the host of the NHL at the Rink podcast, and I have to know what your process is like for creating a show like that.
My prep goes on is not stop. It's like nonstop, right? I mean, it's constant, because what I do is involved in everything that we talk about on the podcast. So it's, let's say we're recording a podcast on a Wednesday. Let's say it was today, right? We actually did it. We just did one Monday night after the trade deadline, but normally we would do it on a Wednesday. And to be honest, like, it's just every day. It's reading, watching. I watch a ton of hockey. Ask my wife, she'll tell you. It's constantly reading. It's following Twitter. Twitter's been, for sports journalism, Twitter has been, an absolute, it's like the cause of and solution to all the problems. And following, insiders that and trust, reading, watching. It's just nonstop. And then it's all about also, in terms of what I write, like in terms of writing and research and everything, it goes on every day. It really does. And then once you sit down and actually, have the mic in front of you, maybe I'd say like an hour and a half before we go on, I'm like, all right, let's get a little checklist of what we want to talk about here. Or sometimes it's the night before, where I'm emailing with my co-host and the producer. All right, here's a checklist of what we should run down. And it's really just bullet points, because at that point, I know what I want to say. I know I have an opinion on something, and then it's sometimes that day, looking up some statistics to back up points, right? But making sure you didn't miss anything, just looking around. Is there anything you can read that would help you form an opinion on this, or did you watch something that you remember? Like, so it's constant, but there has to be, for me, a process of just writing down that checklist of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever it is, things we want to get to, because that way I can just look at it as we're doing the show and be like, oh yeah, we want to get to that. Let's not forget. Let's not get off topic. Let's not get off the tangent here, right? Let's stay focused. But otherwise, it's just a constant, cycling through and almost becoming sort of like a savant in whatever the topic is that you're doing.
Yeah, you're a big time hockey guy, and I feel like we'd be doing a disservice if we did not talk any hockey on this show. With the trade deadline passing, who do you think the biggest winner and losers were?
Oh, you know what? It's hard to do winners and losers, but I will tell you that I like what the New York Rangers did. It didn't show in their game against the New Jersey Devils last night at Prudential Center. Well, it did a little bit. Like, they had holes. This is a team that wants to go for it now and should go for it now. They had holes to fill in their lineup. They filled them, and they didn't give up anybody off their roster to do so. They used some assets that they have, and they didn't even use the biggest assets that they have in trade purposes that they could use. So I like what they did a lot. I like what the Colorado Avalanche did, similarly filling holes. That's the best team in the league right now, and they filled out depth positions to make them better. You look at what the Tampa Bay Lightning did. They've done it again, like third year in a row. Somehow, the NHL is a cap league, right? And everybody seems to be capped out. The Tampa Bay Lightning, I've joked on our podcast Monday night, had about $4.57 in cap space, and they turned it into 3 players, which is amazing. I don't know how they keep doing it, but they do it, and they're going for the third in a row. So I really like what they did as well. I love the fact that Marc-Andre Fleury, one of the best goalies that ever, gets to go get another shot at trying to win with the Minnesota Wild. And all they did was give up a conditional first-round pick to go get him. He just won the Vezina Trophy last year. He's terrific. So I think that's really good. I was a little disappointed, from the Edmonton Oilers. They're a team that's got 2 of the best players in the world in Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. They don't have, but they don't have a lot of cap space. There's not much they could have done. I was hoping that they would make a bigger splash, but they didn't. I don't know that they could have necessarily. So that's one I would look at and be like, I'm not 100% sure. And I like a lot of what was done at the deadline, but now we'll see. Like, the Florida Panthers did a great job. They go out and get Claude Giroux from the Philadelphia Flyers, right? Let's see how it all mixes together now. That's, that it's hard to make trades. It's even harder to go win. That's what we want to see now here in the next 5 weeks or so before 5-6 weeks before the NHL, for the Stanley Cup playoffs begin.
Absolutely. And trade deadlines, I think, are some of the most exciting moments in sports, because there so many teams want to take that risk to eventually become champions. So I love asking this question, especially with someone that is very passionate about a sport, especially when we're not even in the playoffs yet. But if you had to pick, who's taking home the big trophy at the end of the year?
Look, until somebody knocks them off, I'm going with the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, they're what's it called? They're a wagon right now, right? That's what people say, right? Like, they're ridiculous. Like, and I'm telling you, like, they may not be the best team in the league right now, but nobody knows. I mean, they've won 8 consecutive playoff series. Like, until somebody beats them, I'm going to pick them. Like, they have the institutional knowledge of how to win in the playoffs. The Florida Panthers look great. They've won 2 playoff games with this group. Let's see if they can do it. I'm not ready to go there yet. The Colorado Avalanche look great. 3 years in a row, they haven't been able to get past the second round of the playoffs with this group. The Carolina Hurricanes look great. They haven't been able to get it done. They got to the Eastern Conference Final a few years ago, didn't win a game. The Tampa Bay Lightning have the same team, the same core, the best goalie in the world. They just beefed up their bottom 6 forward depth. They've got arguably the best defenseman in the world, a terrific depth behind him, a great coach, and the know-how of how to win. I'm picking them until somebody knocks them off. So they're my choice.
You heard it, guys. That's not a prediction. It's a spoiler for what's going to happen in the NHL season. Thank you so much, Dan, for coming on. Senior writer for the NHL.com and host of the NHL at the Rink podcast and Arizona legend.
Go
Thank you,
Wildcats
Dan.
and
Thursday
March
night.
Madness.
So,
Thursday
guys, we're
night,
going to
Sweet
head
16.
to a quick break. And when we come back, we got some segments with Lana. Thank you again, Dan.
Thanks a lot, guys.